Hello everyone. In this video, we will try to understand how to create Angular components. You already have seen the root component which is by default created when you create the Angular project, which is actually app component. If you observe the app component, you can see there is an export keyword. On top of the class there is an component which is a decorator, and inside the component there are few things mentioned, which is a selector, a tag name, a template URL which is the HTML file location which has the content for this tag, and the style URL will provide the style for the component. And this component is actually part of Angular/core, which is actually imported. And the component what is actually created has to be mentioned in the application module, so that the application will know all the components that has to be rendered on the browser. In the same way, when we create our own component, we need to actually do all these things, like importing the component and writing a class with export keyword, so that you can actually import the class in other TypeScript. For example, in app module, the app component is imported, and also these selectors, template URL, and moreover the style URL is actually optional part. But in order to do all these things, it takes a lot of time, correct? So for that reason only, since Angular is a framework, these things are something which are repeatedly created by the UI developers. So instead of wasting time on creating a class, writing a export keyword, writing component on top of the class, creating an HTML file separately, creating a CSS file separately, mentioning the selector name, and then adding the component in the application module, what Angular has done is it has given a command to do all these things. So it is going to create a component. When you enter the command, it is going to create an HTML file for you, it is going to create CSS file, and also it mentions the component inside the app module declaration section. Okay, so first we will open the terminal. So let us go to this terminal and open a new terminal. I have a terminal here, and we have another terminal which is actually listening to 4200, means the npm start command is entered in this terminal, and the server is actually listening to 4200 to host the Angular application. So what you can do is you can leave this terminal as it is, let it be running in 4200. Let's not close this terminal, and in the new terminal we will enter the command which will generate the component for us. So what is the command I should use is ng followed by generate component and component name, that is user. But the ng command has a shortcut to enter this generate component. So instead of writing generate component, either you write generate component, or the short form for generate is G and for component is C. So instead of writing generate component, you can just write ng generate component and then the component name. So if I enter this command, what exactly happens is it is going to create some files for you, and it automatically adds the component in the application module. It will create HTML file, it is going to create CSS file, and it also creates one spec file for you. So you can see the ng generate component command has created some files for you. So like it has created one HTML file, it has created one spec file. What is a spec file? It is a testing file for your component, and a component.ts file. It is also having the user component.css file. One more thing you need to notice here is the app.module.ts is updated. So what is that app.module.ts is getting updated is whatever the component you need to create has to be updated in the app module.ts. That is also been done, and this component what is created is inside which folder? /app folder /user folder, you can see here, and it has these 4 files already created for you. And when I go to user.component.ts, you can see the class with export and the class name user component. And it also has one statement called implements on init. We will see this on init later. It also has a constructor inside the class, and this on init is an interface with one method called ng on init. We will try to understand this later. As of now, we will ignore this implements on init, constructor, ng on init, all those things. But what you need to really observe is the class user component has @component on top of it, and that @component has a selector. It means app-user is the tag name for this user component, and the content for that app user is present inside this HTML file called user component.html, and this style URL has one CSS file, and whatever the style you write inside this user.component.css, that style will be applied to your user component. And this user component is actually mentioned in the app module.ts. You can observe here. So it is actually mentioned in the declaration section, and it is also imported because we have export keyword in the user component. It can be imported. All these things are done with one single command called ng generate component. Now what we can do is this user component which is created has a selector name called app user, and the content of the app user is actually present in user component.html. If you go to user component.html, you will just see the welcome message like user works. So every time you generate a component, this one welcome message will be there, which you can change it later. We actually know that in Angular there will be one root component, and inside the root component we need to add all the other components. So what is that root component actually? This app component. So this app component has the content in app component.html. It has a allo with some title, which is actually coming in the browser. It has allo Angular framework, right? And now what we will do, we will try to add the child component which is created like user component. This message I want to show in my browser. What to do now? For that, whatever the user component you have, what is the tag name? App user. So whenever you use this tag app user, the content of user component.html will be actually shown in place of app user. So what we should do is we should use this tag name. But where to use this tag name? You can use it inside any component. Okay, you can use it inside any component. So we already have a root component, this app component.html, and we will use the tag called app user like this. So what is the content of this app user? The content of app user is just user works. Let's see what is it going to show. It is actually showing user works. So this is showing, the reason is because when you have app user added in the root component, the DOM is going to load the root component. This root component is actually part of which is actually present in this app component.ts has this app-root. Where is this app-root present? We have already seen that is present in index.html, and app-root, when you use, the content of app component.html will be rendered, and the app component.html has allow title, and also it should add this user component under this, correct? So that is why it is actually showing user work. And what we will do is we will try to change this content app-user. For that, let me go to user component.html, and instead of this welcome message, let me write div with hello user component, and automatically your application will be reloaded. So you can see the allow user component, right? So next what we will do is in the user component we will try to add one variable. Let me add one variable called name I will write here the name as Alexander, and I will write age variable with the value 35. So how to display this name and age in the user component is, we need to actually wrap these variables using two flower braces in this HTML file. So let us go to the user component.html, and what we will do is we will just remove this and mention inside h3 like hello name, which is going to show the value of the name, that is Alexander, and your age is the value of the age has to be displayed. So automatically your browser will reload, and it is going to show hello Alexander, your age is 35. As of now we have hard coded these values, correct, but later we can get the value from the database and we can actually show those values on the browser. So here when you modify anything and once you save, automatically the changes will be detected by your Angular. So the Angular CLI command, when it creates a project, it is going to add the feature of auto compilation and reloading everything. So this is just how to create a simple component and how to actually add the component in our root component, that is actually app component.